with that. Now I want to introduce you to Kieno Kammies. And for those who have been, sleeping under a rock for the last 20 years, he's a media veteran, having been part of the commercial media landscape for the past 25 years. He used to run the Kieno Kammies show on Cape Talk that everybody listened to and talked about. He has an international media work that includes commentary for BBC, as well as having been contracted as consultant corresponding for NBC, TV News, New York and London. And he actually used to work under the legend Tom Brokaw, and that's, something special. So he's also the founder of Disrupt Monitored, a media company, and he's also my co-founder in Innovation City, Cape Town. Over to you, Kieno.
Stefan, I've got to tell you, thank you very much. That sounded like an obituary, but I've never seen you with a tie, by the way. Absolutely amazing stuff. And then they put me off the Paulina.
Doesn't happen often. Doesn't happen often, I can tell you.
And then you put me off the amazing Paulina. So I definitely have to get my ducks in a row. It's an absolute pleasure being with you. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm thrilled that we now have WiT Africa. And speaking of the continent, the big question is, where's the innovation? There's lots of innovation. A lot of people traditionally spent time looking at the Silicon Valleys, looking at what's happening in Asia, and rightfully so, because there are amazing innovations that emanate from there. But this continent that I call home, this absolutely amazing continent, certainly has some of the best innovations that I've seen in a very long time. And of course, we are talking travel, and that's what we're going to be going into. So our startup showcase today, I'll be introducing you to some of the amazing people that are making a difference on the ground. The big thing with innovation is, everybody talks about innovation. Everybody talks about where it emanates from, and we get all theoretical about it. But the bottom line is, when you experience problems on the ground, when you don't have as much as someone else does, and you've got lots of teething headaches and all the rest of it, that is sometimes the most fertile ground to give birth to some of the innovations that we are going to be talking about today. So I'll keep quiet, and without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to an amazing panel. So first of all, you've got Ibukunoluwa Salau, founder of Afriktrip. Now, Afriktrip, I believe you were 20 when you founded this, Ibu. So thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you on. We also have Lara, Dendian, co-founder at the Conservation Club. Now, Lara, I've got to tell you, when I initially saw this, and maybe it's because of my dyslexia, I thought to myself, what in the world is the Conversation Club all about? But then when I read it properly, I thought, oh, hold on, that's even more interesting. Let's get her on, let's talk about this, right? So we'll be finding out more about your story. And finally, someone who's definitely solving problems when it comes to travel, everyday travel on this continent. His name is Onyeka Akumah, co-founder and CEO. And I love this title, man. And you have to be living in Africa to appreciate it. It's called Treepz. Is that right? Can you hear me, Onyeka?
Yes, I can hear you.
That's right. There we go. I got it right. It is Treepz, right?
Yes, you're correct.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks to all of you for agreeing to join us. I'm all about conversation and story. I try not to get too academic about things. So I'm going to ask all of you to tell us your stories today. And maybe, Onyeka, we can start with you. Tell us your story, right? Like, who is Onyeka Akumah? Just before we even talk about the business you're involved in, who are you as a dude, man?
Okay, simple guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Kieno. So Onyeka Akumah, I started off as a software engineer. I grew up in a family where my dad, a medical doctor, had 2 PhDs in medicine and geriatrics medicine and obstetrics and gynecology. My mom, on the other hand, was a businesswoman. So while my dad wanted me to read lots of books and just be so grounded with my academics, my mom was telling me I needed to have 4 businesses in order to be wealthy. So I had a combination of 2 parties that allowed me to blend both my academics with my entrepreneurial skills. Getting out of school, I started designing websites for people. So I created lots of websites. And then I got a job with British Council, Deloitte. These were corporates I worked with. Then started off with startups like Waka Now. I was maybe the first employee in Jumia in Nigeria. I got into Konga, Travel Better. So I did a bit in the travel space actually, and then decided to then start my own businesses. So I started my first business 2013, sold it. It was a news aggregator. 2016, did the second in agriculture. And now I'm pretty much focused on the travel space, and travel being public transportation, moving people within cities and moving people across cities. Outside of work, I love football, I love soccer. It depends on where you are on the continent. People call it soccer or football. I play football, I play soccer. I sing, I'm very athletic. I do a lot of sports. Even if I have a big stomach, I still am very, very energetic. But I love, yeah, it's not so big, but people say it's big. Well, it's fine. But I love sports. I love competing. And I love entrepreneurship. I love inspiring people to start up their own businesses with their ideas. And across the continent of Africa, I'm excited about this generation because we're doing amazing stuff right now.
We need more people like you on the continent. I mean, we're going to have the youngest population in the world over the next couple of years on this particular continent, a significant amount of that population, by the way. And we need leaders like you, like Lara, like Ibukunoluwa to actually lead the way forward. So thanks very much for that introduction to yourself, Onyeka. So Lara, Dendian, tell us a little about yourself. Very good morning, or good afternoon at least.
Very good. Yeah, good afternoon to you too. And I'm delighted to be here and actually take part in this conversation. And I agree with you. I think conversation is actually a good name. It's something I love as much as I like conservation. So it could have been something to bring in there. But I think, the one thing, about me, I've kind of grown up traveling around Africa, absolutely love Africa. And I think like one of the main things for me is that I can't unknow things once I've known them. And through traveling in Africa, you start seeing things, you start seeing opportunity. And it's always like, every time I go to these different places, I've just been like, oh, I can't forget that. I can't forget that opportunity. I can't forget what I saw there. And that's kind of inspired Conservation Club. It stemmed from being in the industry and kind of seeing inefficiencies and seeing things and being like, I can't not do something. There's too much opportunity here. Yeah. But one of the big things it kind of goes, yes.
No, I was just going to ask what you do in your spare time, because we'll get into the business side of things, right? I just want to know what you get up to when nobody's watching.
When nobody's watching. No, I'm super active. I love the outdoors. I play a lot of water polo, which is an interesting one, but which is actually taking me. I studied in America playing water polo, went to Australia playing water polo. So aside from traveling in Africa, I've been fortunate enough to actually travel the world playing water polo. Just love being outdoors, like being with friends, love having stimulating conversations. That's what I do in my spare time.
Excellent stuff. Now, Ibukunoluwa, I had to practice, because you've got a beautiful name, but it didn't roll off my tongue right at the beginning. So I'm just hoping I'm doing justice to it. Good afternoon, sir. Is Ibukunoluwa there? Okay, I think we might have a challenge with Ibukunoluwa. If we have a problem with that, we'll just move on. I think we get into the business of talking business, right? Travel business. Lara, let's pick up from you, right? Tell us your story, right? We talk about the Conservation Club. It should be speaking for itself, but I think we need more of the nuance, more of the detail, and more of the problem that you're actually solving. So tell us about the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you're saying there rings true, that it should speak for itself, but it often doesn't, especially with conservation's relation to travel. And I think that's one of the big things is that Conservation Club stems from the understanding that travel to Africa or travel to anywhere is essential for conservation to take place. So for us to have economic, and this goes from communities to economics to protecting biodiversity, we need travel, and we need sustainable travel and travel done in the right way for conservation to be successful. So so one of the big things with Conservation Club is enabling a sustainable way of traveling. It's almost in engaging people to travel sustainably across this continent in a way that's efficient and in a way that's transparent. Because I think that's the biggest nuance that is often not kind of understood, is how essential travel is in order for conservation to and for us to protect our biodiversity, which everything kind of relies upon.
Okay, so for me as a customer, what does that mean? How do my touch points with your business, right? So who are you aiming this at, and what is the value that you're offering there?
So essentially what Conservation Club is we are a B2C online booking platform. So what we've got, we add two kinds of values. So on the one hand, for a customer, so for you as a customer, we are tapping into a conscious consumer, someone, and this is kind of the rise in consumer, is someone that wants to understand where their money is being spent. So we curate our portfolio of partners, of eco-lodges, and we put them on the platform, and we make it easy for that consumer to book these eco-lodges. And then for our other kind of side of it, which is our other customer, which is the eco-lodges, is we provide the tech in order to access this market. Because one things that we're talking about as well is ecotourism. So we aren't talking about hotels, and we aren't talking about cottages that can be rented out. We're talking about ecotourism, eco-lodges, which offer a little bit more of a layer of complexity when it comes to booking or when it comes to accessing. So this is what we provide. We provide an online booking platform for direct consumers to book eco-lodges across Africa. I've
seen some of those eco-lodges, man, absolutely stunning stuff. So it's something I'll be taking advantage of. But I do believe that Ibukunoluwa has joined us. Are you there, sir? Okay, yeah, we'll try and sort that. There we are. Okay, brilliant. So you've heard Lara there. We've just heard from Onyeka as well. We already got into the business side with Lara, but let's talk a little bit about your business, Afriktrip, right? I believe you were 20 when you started it. You were 17 when you were thrown into entrepreneurship in the first place. So this is really, I looked at that and said, geez, what was I doing when I was 17? Trying to figure out my life, I think it was. So just tell us a bit about yourself, and then we can go into the business side of things with you as well.
So it's so nice to be with you guys here. I'm very excited. Okay, my full name is Ibukunoluwa Salau. I'm from August University. Like Kieno said, I've spent since 17. I've been building products since 17, and I think I fell in love with building products after I read about a guy called Pasternak. So he moved from Australia to the US and raised, I think, $600,000 at the age of, I think, 17. So I was just like, so in my mind, I was just like, nah, if this guy can do it, I probably can do it. So I thought it was just like an easy ride. Well, it's been 4 years it's been a 4 years journey, and well, it's been nice. So I started with building a product called Boxplay. So what Boxplay was meant to be was like Netflix, but for renting cinema movies in Nigeria. Then I proceeded to build a product called Krelux, which was basically like Airbnb for film location rental. So what we're trying to do then was we're trying to help filmmakers find and rent people's houses to use as locations for their film shoots. Then after then, I built a product called Untitled.com, which was basically like an online marketplace for you to find like things to do in Nigeria. So it was Untitled.com that later became Afriktrip, So Afriktrip is an online marketplace for travelers to find and book tours and activities to do in African countries.
Okay, so Afriktrip, if I understand it, you basically aggregate all of these and people can then book it, right, through your aggregation platform, correct?
Yeah, so we work with local tour guides across Africa who list tours and activities they organize on our marketplace, and then we help them to like market it to tourists all across the world. Okay,
excellent stuff. Now, Onyeka, let's talk a little bit about Treepz. Let's get into the business side of your business. Once again, I mean, we understand your journey, we understand who you are, but tell us about the problem that you're solving specifically, and just, a bit of a journey as to how you got to where you are at the moment with the business itself.
So one of the days I came back from a trip outside of Nigeria into Lagos, I had a very important meeting to make. And it required me to travel a distance of 2 hours that usually with traffic would take you 6 hours in Lagos. So I had to take a bike. So I took 2 bike rides that day to get to that meeting. I finished from the meeting. To get to the second meeting, I had to take a boat ride across the lagoon to get to that meeting. Now, when we're done, my co-founders are like, see, let's complete this adventure today. Today you've flown, today you've used a bike, today you've used a boat. What else is left to do? I said, okay, let's take a bus. But like, no, I mean, initially they said, let's take a bus. I said, no, I wasn't going to do that. Because I hadn't taken the bus in a while, because the buses we had in many parts of Lagos were buses that, in the short form of putting it, I had a panic attack when I eventually took that ride with the bus, because you had the buses weren't in the right state. And I was really, really worried about doing that. But what happened was that trip then, that ride on the bus made me realize that, hey, there are people that will put on shirts like what you have, Kieno, and wear their black tie on it. And every day they have to go to work. And if they can't afford Uber or Bolt, the only form of transportation they can afford is these buses. And they will put themselves through this painful experience of traveling and commuting for about 4-6 hours every day in this kind of condition. So that immediately sparked something in me, like, why can't we have buses that are air conditioned? Why can't we have buses that the seats are brand new, that is neat, and people can sit inside them and bring out their laptops and feel safe and walk or sleep if they want to, and the bus is able to get to your bus stop, and you can get on that bus without struggling with someone else to hop in, but you have an app that's able to let you book your seat before the bus comes. I'm talking about doing this from bus stop to bus stop. Now, that was initially what we planned to do, and then we set out to launch Treepz. Originally, it was called Plenty Waka. The Waka in Nigerian terms means movement, but as soon as we started looking at taking Treepz out of Nigeria, we had to change the name to Treepz, from Plenty Waka to Treepz, so that we can have something that people can understand, and we don't have to explain too much what it is we're doing. So September 2019, we launched Treepz, and it took us a while to get going. We had 17 brand new buses that we put on the road. We had very few people using them initially, but by the 6th month, we had moved 100,000 people with our buses. By the 6th month, and then COVID hit us, and so many things happened. I think I will talk more about what COVID did to us as a business. But what we then built was a mobile app that now allows people to predict their travel times. So you're able to search, and it tells you the buses approaching your bus stop, the time they will get there, the number of seats there. You can book your seats, you can pay using digital wallets, and once you do this, you're able to get to the bus stop, and you just scan with your QR code and get on the bus, without any form of transaction between you and the driver. You make your trip, and you board off the trip, and you check out. We've also added the fact that you can now go from city to city. So if I want to go from, say, Lagos to Abuja, or I want to go from Cape Town to Joburg, for instance, in South Africa, I'm able to get on that app, and I see the different bus operators, an aggregator platform, like what you have with TravelStat for airlines. You have that now with buses. And so we aggregate all the different bus operators on our platform, and we're able to give you their travel itinerary, the number of seats available. You can select the seat you want, and you make your trip. So that is essentially what we've built today in Treepz. And we're excited that because in 2 years, we've been able to now move over 500,000 people. We've now expanded beyond Nigeria into Ghana. And on Monday this week, we just announced our acquisition of Uga Bus in Uganda. So that puts us also in East Africa in the last 2 years.
That is phenomenal. Once again, it took a couple of bike rides. I'm sure you probably had to swim over some place as well to get there. But
I have pictures.
You should share. I should really do an interview with you guys about your respective businesses. Love what you're doing. Now, I am mindful of time, and you know, COVID-19 obviously has been the greatest leveler. It's been I can't say pain in the thing on a platform like this, but I can say it's been a right royal pain in my left ingrown toenail, right? But people find their way through the challenges that COVID actually presented. As a matter of fact, COVID sometimes helped some of the digital business models out there. So I would like to know from the three of you what your relationship with COVID was from a business perspective. And maybe, Lara, let's start with you. So just for those who may be just tuning in, Lara Dendian is the co-founder of the Conservation Club. They basically give African residents access to top conservation accommodation experiences and expeditions, right, at local rates. I hope I got that right, because if I got it wrong, your website got it wrong. So, so Lara, let's talk about your relationship with COVID-19, how it affected the business, and how you had to, we still have to use this word, how you potentially pivoted out of that.
Well, I think maybe where we're a little bit different is that we launched in COVID. So
in COVID,
actually
okay.
One of the biggest, yeah, so we launched during COVID, and because one of the big things that COVID did, I think, for everyone is that it just spotlighted inefficiencies. And this is something that's kind of very, very prevalent in the ecotourism space. I mean, in a good year, it's not even in a COVID year, an eco lodge is sitting on a 50% occupancy. So that just shows you the room for optimization and the room for kind of improvement in terms of generating business for eco lodges. So that's not even to say what the occupancies were like during COVID. So what COVID actually exposed to us was that there is a need for optimization, need to be creating efficiencies in this industry. And one of the things lacking is a consolidated booking platform that serves an eco lodge. You can travel anywhere and book on Airbnb or booking.com, but that is not facilitated for eco lodges. And equally so, for eco lodges, they have no way to access a local market. They've got no way to have flexible dynamic rates that serves them in times of change, which COVID is. So the big thing that for COVID was that we needed to create something that was proactive to change, create a platform that was dynamic. So COVID was the biggest test. It was the reason why we did this, but it was also the test because it constantly changed. The one thing that COVID was consistent was throwing spanners. So constantly there was change. So for us, it made us formulate our platform and get ourselves to a point where we are a platform that can facilitate responding to change, can facilitate dynamic rates, offers, and really accessing a market that previously was untapped. So COVID was the catalyst, but also the challenger, which is something we're continuously working with.
Wonderful. And just a very quick one, future aspirations as a business, where do you see yourself operating next couple of years?
We see us working with an international market. We see us working globally. We see us having a local strategy continuously. But I think most importantly, because our kind of foundation is that we want to kind of create that connect with travel and conservation, is that we want this to become more relevant. I think people are going to start questioning why they travel. I think we're already seeing that on a global scale. So if you are going to travel, it needs to be for good reasons. So people need to know that by traveling to Africa or by traveling to certain places, you are contributing. And we essentially want to provide them with the platform that gives them this information, that their money is well spent and that there's a positive reason for their travel, but also enables them to travel and enables that kind of full circle to continue.
Love your work, man. Absolutely love your work. I shouldn't be saying this. Can I say it on this platform? I'm so over bloody Uber and what's this other damn thing? Oh, Airbnb. You know, these are companies that yes, they were very innovative up front. Then they became too big and started acting like corporates. I said it. So Lara, thank you very much for that. What about yourself, Onyeka? COVID.
So for us with COVID, we were operating in the public transportation space, and immediately COVID hit. I think March 16th, we hit 100,000 rides. March 21st, we're told to shut down operations because the entire country was going to lock down. That's Nigeria, where we're solely operating in. And at that time, we hadn't started the city-to-city travel on our platform. So we literally shut down. And for the first 2 months, everyone was just at home. There was a lot of fear, there was a lot of panic, and people weren't sure of what was going on. But we just said to ourselves that, hey, we needed to get some money in. We hadn't raised any funding no external funding. And so we first took out all the seats in our vehicles. We took out all the seats because the only thing you could move at that time were food items and medical supplies. So we took out all the seats and started using our vehicles to move food items and medical supplies because we needed to get some money into the system. So we did that to survive the remaining 2 months of hard lockdown. And then as soon as things started easing off, we started getting back on the road to get our customers moving. We didn't have money for marketing, but because of the way we had built our brand, we spent $0 marketing for the next 9 months after COVID, after things started easing off, but we got 100% of our customers back, because they could trust us for our security, they could trust us for our predictability, and they could trust the kind of service we're going to be rendering to them. But what we did immediately was we went out to raise some funding. That funding allowed us to sustain ourselves, to backdate. I mean, some of the salaries we couldn't pay, so we had to deal with that. We immediately started looking at how do we get other forms of travel beyond the city, in-city travel, the intra-city travel. And so we started talking to bus operators to bring their buses on our platform to start doing city-to-city movement of people. So it pushed us to a point where we had to rethink our model. As against just focusing on moving people within cities, we started moving people between cities. We started providing corporate service. So organizations didn't have the money to buy staff buses for themselves any longer. They came to us and they were able to rent our buses to use them to move their staff and their employees, or move students from school. So that, all of that was what helped us. I think it was a season where it changed the dynamics of work. It changed the dynamics of how you think of your business model. It changed the dynamics of how you employ people and retain people. All of this has just influenced how we changed all our operations. And I think we've come out of it well, and we're grateful that we're still here and growing.
Love the story as well, and looking forward to seeing your growth. Now, got to wrap, right? So got another interesting guest coming up, which I'll tell you about. But Ibukunoluwa, what about yourself and COVID? I'm going to ask you to be rather brief with the business, with the Afriktrip, right? Just an insight into how COVID affected your business.
Yeah, so first, apologies for the cutoff. I think my internet has chosen the wrongest day to act up. So basically, just like Lara, I started Afriktrip just before COVID. So I started building the product in February 2020, just before the full-blown of the pandemic. Right. So when we started building it, I just decided that, you know what, rather than just suspending building, so we just spent the next 9 months just building the product and signing up as much local tour operators as we can onto the platform, because we saw that obviously at some point travel is going to return. So now is the best time to get all these tour operators on the platform, get their tours on the platform, build out the platform so that when travel finally returns, we are ready for booking. So in the space of till now we've added over 400 local tour operators across 28 African countries, and they are selling over 1,200 of their local tours and activities on our marketplace. The COVID has helped really, because COVID has opened up a lot of some of the inefficiencies with online marketplaces that are selling tours and activities for Africa. I'm very sure if we had raised money in February 2020, probably had bought everything and not learned anything. Probably have bought the marketing thinking that that's the best way to get it. Like, for example, now we discovered that one of the things I discovered over the last few months of building is the fact that many of these local tour operators, what they really want is, so here it is. Before the pandemic, local tour operators in Africa have always wanted a platform that gives them flexibility and allows them to provide like a high level of personalization to their customers. So right now, where everybody is predicting that the future of travel is going to be more flexible, more personalization, most of the tour operators in Africa have had to incorporate this flexibility and personalization into their business model. Because, for example, now many of the tours and activities you have in Africa, let them use the safaris, for example. They are very, very high valued. So if you're like a cheap advisor, or like you get your guide in Europe, many of the tours in all those regions of the world are low budget tours. So you get like a $20 tour for like a walk to the FE tour. But in Africa, most of the tours are very high valued. And there's no way a tourist will just pay you $1,000 just off the internet. So there must be like some sort of flexibility, customization. Can I pay half now? Can I pay half later? So those are some of the things that we began to see while we're building the product during the COVID-19.
Okay. So, thank you for your time. I'm going to move on to innovation, right? But I want to thank all three of you. This is how you spell success. Unicorns. There we go. In the making. Love it. Very individualized businesses doing what other people haven't done, emanating from the continent. As an African, it just makes me proud to listen to all of you, and it gives me goosebumps. And I'm not, this is water, by the way, just in case people were wondering. So I just want to thank all of you for being part of this amazing conversation.
Thank you for having us. Thanks a lot, Kieno.
It's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure indeed.